So avoir phrases, how to use them and how to translate them. So remember, our base verb is avoir, meaning to have. It is an irregular verb, meaning you had to memorize all of the conjugations. It did not follow a regular ER or RE pattern. It is extremely important, though, that you have it fully memorized, because avoir is not only the basis for a number of idiomatic phrases, which is a phrase that cannot be directly translated, which is what we are talking about today and tomorrow, but it's also the base for several other verb tenses. You're not going to be able to conjugate the passé composé, the past tense that will start before this school year ends. You're not going to be able to conjugate it if you don't know avoir. You won't be able to conjugate the future tense next year in French too without knowing avoir, etc., etc. So let's run through the conjugations really quickly. We have j'ai, tu as, il, elle, on a, nous avons, vous avez, and ils ont and elles ont. So remember that liaison is in fact a thing. It occurs in that entire last column, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. But it's especially important on those last two, because ils ont and ils sont are two very, very different verbs. Ils ont, with a Z sound formed by this liaison, is they have. Ils sont is they are. So very, very different verbs. Pay very particularly close attention to make sure that you're pronouncing that Z sound in between all four of those. So questions 1 and 2. Simple, just conjugate avoir for tu and for elle. Alright, so our avoir phrases. So all of our avoir phrases use avoir in French, but they use another verb, typically to be, when we translate them into English. That means that we cannot directly translate these phrases, meaning they're idiomatic. However, they are also extremely common. So, for example, to say to be hungry in French is an avoir phrase, avoir faim, or to be right, avoir raison. So these are phrases that you use most every day. Okay, so you have to know how to conjugate them in French, even though they cannot be directly translated. The other difficulty is that we cannot use modifiers like très, very, in these phrases, because the French isn't using an adjective form. We can say, I am hungry and I am very hungry. That makes perfect sense in English. But when we switch to avoir, we're literally saying, I have hunger. It doesn't make any sense to say, I have very hunger. So we have to be a little bit careful. We can't approach them as if they're adjectives, simply because they're not. Whenever you're using avoir phrases, you must conjugate the avoir. This is non-negotiable. It must happen. You can never, ever use an avoir phrase as the main verb of your sentence and not conjugate avoir. It's impossible. So quit turning in sentences like this. Nous avons de la chance. It doesn't make sense. If I were to literally translate it into English, you just told me, we to be lucky. No, quit doing it. An infinitive, like avoir, that begins with a to whatever, like to be or to have or to play or to do or to go, any of them. An infinitive will never directly follow a subject. Any of your je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, and elle. An infinitive will never, ever, ever directly follow that subject. Question number 3. What, then, is horribly, horribly wrong with the following sentence, and how should you fix it? Whenever you want to use an avoir phrase correctly, all you have to do is conjugate avoir to match whatever subject pronoun you want to use, and then just tack on whatever the rest of the phrase is. So for example, if we want to say that a group of people, you are cold, the first thing we have to do, we have to figure out what subject pronoun we're using. So we have a plural you, so we're going to use vous. Next, we have to figure out what avoir phrase matches the rest of our sentence. So if we want to say, you are cold, so we want the one with the cold in it to be cold, we know that that's avoir froid. All we have to do then is conjugate avoir to match vous. Vous avez froid. The end. You're done. See how easy that was? Let's look at another one. If we want to say she is hungry, what's the very first thing you have to do? Figure out your subject. Elle. What's the next thing we do? Figure out the hungry part. Avoir faim. And what do we have to do to finish the sentence? Conjugate avoir to match elle. Elle a faim. So take this on for yourself in questions 4 and 5. How would you ask, are you thirsty, to a classmate or a friend? Or how would you tell me, I need a pencil?